What's your confidence in playing Alex against Houston this time around? I think in the past Alex has had some issues in terms of following three-point shooters, but it's been a while since
Yeah.
then, and Alex has come a ways defensively.
Yeah, I mean, I feel confident in Alex. I think, as I've said, during the course of the season, I think he's worked really hard to improve and get better in that area. And I think just his concentration and focus on an end of the floor, his understanding that he's needed to improve there. I think he's really made significant strides. He's gotten better, so I feel confident in terms of how much growth he's made in that area.
That growth that he's made, does that help you in terms of putting him out there? Because Houston's obviously a team that can shoot a three-point shot. Now this is a guy who can, in theory, neutralize that.
Yeah, I mean, I have confidence in Alex. Like I said, I have confidence. Certainly matchups, rotations, how the game goes, but it's not like I'm going into the game saying I can't play Alex. So I mean, I have confidence in him.
You have a number of guys that you've been able to finish games with, whether it's Raymond or Jeremy or Josh or Alex. Just kind of generally, how do you feel about the options that you have in terms of finishing in crunch time, and kind of how do you evaluate through the course of a game, who kind of fits in?
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely rotated, since Andre's, injury, playing against Portland, with, and even Dallas, where they went with basically 2 point guards. It was nice to have Raymond out there. There's been some times where they've had maybe bigger or longer athletic wing players, and we've gone with Jeremy and Josh. So, sometimes it's been dictated by who we're playing against.
Houston, so much of what they do, they don't get a lot of points in the paint, but they obviously get to the line a ton, and so many of their threes come from just being able to get downhill. How are they able to do that so successfully and so often?
Just ability to put the ball on the floor and drive. They got really, really good offensive players that can really put the ball on the floor. Hart's a great one-on-one player. Gordon, same thing, great one-on-one player. Those guys most of their perimeter players all break down guards off the dribble. So whether they have a pick and roll or they're just in space, those guys have the ability to get by you and get around you. And I think anytime you create some form of penetration to the rim, you're either going to lead to fouls or threes.
Is Mike D'Antoni is kind of pigeonholed into this very particular identity publicly as a coach? Is that unfair? The way that this team plays is so different from the way that the 05 Suns played. Is he a lot more of a versatile coach than he gets credit for?
Yeah, I don't know if I've ever heard that. I mean, I think that every coach out there tries to utilize their personnel to the best of their ability. So I'm sure that he's trying to do that. But I would never have classified him as a guy that wasn't a versatile coach. Certainly, I think he has a philosophy and a system and a style that he believes in, as we all do as coaches, and that he's been really, really effective playing that way.
The way you all defended the three-point line against Portland, does that kind of give you some confidence going into the game with Houston? Obviously, you all allowed a lot of three-pointers going into that game, but I think you limited Portland a little bit there.
Yeah, different, totally different.
Yeah.
The Portland predominantly playing with two big guys. These guys are not, so it would be really a hard comparison between Portland and Houston systematically in terms of how they're going about doing that. But yeah, just because we did a pretty good job in the Portland game doesn't mean that necessarily it would be the same in the Houston game.
What's the state of your offense right now? What are you happy with? What would you like to see improved?
We still have got to get better. I think we had some games on this trip we were really good. I didn't think the Portland game was a really great offensive game for us in particular. I didn't think we shot the ball well when we did have good looks. We didn't shoot the ball well from behind the line. I think we had some opportunities to really generate penetration to kick to some ball movements. We had some really, really good possessions, but I didn't think we had enough of those, in the course of the game.
Do you see the difference in practice when you get Carmelo rest in a game like that? Do you see it the next day, or is it something that?
Well, Carmelo's a complete pro. He's a great guy. He practices every day. He practices every day. I'm sure for all players, when they're coming off of a game, there's always a fatigue factor the next morning coming in for practice, not even based on it being Carmelo, but certainly having a couple days under his belt, there's certainly, he's probably feeling a little bit fresher and more rejuvenated because he's had a couple days.
How both you guys and for Corey to get in the first game and then to have him on film and kind of go through everything with him?
Yeah, I mean, it was good. It was good just to throw him in there. I wasn't going to play him a lot of minutes, and I wanted to see if there was an opportunity there to throw him in early in both halves. So it was good. And then, having yesterday with him, staff was able to communicate with him on some defensive things and have him practice again today. And then I was able to meet with him some, just try to get him up to speed. So the last, I think, few days have been good for him, just in terms of retention and picking things up.
Billy, both of you guys in Houston changed your teams pretty dramatically around guys who had great years. What in your mind has just been Russell's biggest adjustment this year?
Well, I think for him is when you're a point guard and the roster changes like ours did, there's an adjustment in learning players. And then it's not only so much learning players of from previous teams, but how do those players from previous teams incorporate for the group collectively? And I think as a point guard, Russell takes a lot of pride in putting it upon himself as a point guard to make sure he's trying to incorporate, keep those guys involved and doing his job. So there's always a learning curve for any player in that position, in that situation, to be able to do that. So I think he's wanted to make Paul feel very comfortable, wanted to make Carmelo feel very comfortable. He's wanted to make Patrick feel very comfortable. He's spent time with Corey here the last couple days trying to get him comfortable and acclimated and communicating. Same thing with Raymond Felton. I mean, he's trying to do that with everybody. So that's always an adjustment period for someone like Russell that's probably for most of his career has had a pretty stable roster, so to speak, and there's been quite a bit of turnover from last year. Actually coming out of my first year, there was a huge turnover, and there was a huge turnover again. So as a point guard, there's an adjustment period I think you go through in learning players.
I think it's sort of easy when you ask a guy individually to do a little bit more. It's easy to see where that's difficult, where that challenge lies. Is there a challenge in asking a guy to individually do a little less?
Well, that's the misconception. Is sometimes less is actually even more, because there was times, I think, this year where Paul has been an incredible elite two-way player in this league for a long time. So you're looking and trying to find different ways to incorporate him, coming from a situation where he was the main focus, the main guy. Same thing even with Carmelo in New York. There's an adjustment period, there's give and take. So sometimes when you're actually having to make the adjustment, and also at the willingness to try to help somebody else, that actually adds more. Even though maybe taking less shots or maybe not having the ball in his hands as much, all those things could be a little bit different, for him. So sometimes where it looks like less in productivity may be more in terms of trying to manage and deal with, the four guys are on the floor with him.
Billy, you get asked about that starting shooting guard spot a lot.
I'm sorry?
You get asked about that starting shooting guard spot a lot, but is your vision eventually for Corey to be the primary guy absorbing those minutes with the other four guys around him?
Well, I mean, it's like I said with the situation with Josh. We wanted to get into and I kind of put this on myself. We kind of rotated some starting lineups based on a lot of different reasons, but to try to be a little bit more consistent with the starting group, putting Josh out there and starting him and giving him consecutive games, a stretch of games where he started. And I think Josh has done a good job for us. Obviously, having Corey here, who's a veteran, he's a wing player, he's experienced. My feeling is you need to try to incorporate and utilize everybody on the roster, somehow. Now, to see how Corey incorporates with these guys, I don't know if the Portland game was a fair assessment, just one game, but I would say that the goal would be to get Corey more than 12 minutes a game. Now, whether that means starting him and coming off the bench, I'm not quite sure what's best, because I don't have enough information to see him playing with those guys of what his role would be. Would he be better for us in the second unit? Would he be better for us starting? Would Josh be better in the second unit? Would be better starting? Now, Josh has played some in the second unit because we've had him start some second quarters, but I think that's something we're going to have to figure out here on the fly a little bit. And I know there's not a lot of games left and a lot of time left to figure that out, but there may be some trial and error where you look at some things that may be good and you stick with it, maybe some things that aren't. But my feeling would be to get Corey more playing time. But to say right now the goal is to start him or have him come off the bench, I don't know if I could say that.
Weird deja vu coaching Corey again?
Yeah, I mean, it's been great. I mean, obviously my time with him was so much different, when he was 18, 19 years old and 3 years in college to now the guy's got 11 years in the NBA under his belt. Now, we've kept in touch during all that time, but Yeah, just him. I mean, he's obviously a guy that I love to death and shared a lot of incredible experiences together. I love his family. For me, to be able to be reunited at the NBA level with a player you coached in college was always great. But he's a grown man, and like I said, when he first came here in Phoenix, we embraced each other. The biggest thing right now is him getting acclimated to the team and to the players and those kind of things. And he's got enough experience under his belt; he'll figure things out as things go on.
Thank you, Coach.